The hour of 6 o'clock on July 16th, 2025, having arrived, a full, not only a quorum, but every member of the new board of directors is present, either in person or virtually. Hi, Phil. For the first full meeting of the new board, thank you all for being here. And we have a lot of business to get to today. So first, let's adopt the agenda, and then we'll have Jordan Dittmer from Wegner give us his presentation on the audit and management letter. So are there any suggestions to amend the agenda, or can it stand as currently reads?
My only thing is like all the chatter at the bottom doesn't feel like part of the agenda. And I don't want to dissuade, at least in the future, whether it's Grant or anybody else, from making comments, but I don't know. I don't know how we consider those things part or not part of the agenda.
Are you talking about the quotations from the bylaws and policy documents?
At the end, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. I'm just, in the past, I have never seen this kind of multi-person input with comment on our agendas.
So you're saying it could just stand as subunit appointments, meeting calendar, and recommendations without the
I think
commentary?
so, and I don't,
Okay.
and I'm, whatever, I don't need to make trouble.
Well, if there's not a formal motion to amend it, we'll accept it as submitted, or do you want to?
Why don't we, yes, I'll accept it as submitted
Okay.
with the comment that perhaps we clean it up in the future if we do something like that.
That perhaps, Grant, the stuff that you've got as the commentary could have gone as comments to the side as opposed to in the body of the agenda itself.
Okay.
I think that's your point.
Yes.
Okay, so with that understood, then we'll proceed. And before we get to our internal business, Jordan Dittmer from Wegner CPA is going to make a presentation on the management letter and our 2024 audit. Welcome and thank you.
Yeah, of course. And maybe I'll start just kind of passing. I got like just a one-page summary here that maybe start on both sides. I think there's enough for everyone. I think there's like 20 of them, so hopefully that'll cover us here. But yeah, thank you. So like I said, I'm Jordan. I was the in-charge auditor for Back Porch Radio this year. This is my first year working on the audit, but I'm just talking about they've been a client of Wagner for a long time now. Some of you, it sounds like know Bruce and Hannah as well. So might have been my first year on the audit, but I've been working with Hannah for a long time and she had everything set up great. So it was a really smooth experience, good experience on the audit. Things just big picture wise went well. So what kind of just got passed out was just like a one-page summary, hits a few of the highlights. And that's kind of what I intend to go through, just kind of hitting on a couple of these items here. And then really just opening up if there's any questions at the end or as things come up, feel free to ask. But I'll start to you by just thanking everybody for their help that was involved in the audit process. Doug, Marijoy, and Susan did a lot of the heavy lifting. And, it really just, like I said, they don't all go super smooth, but this one did go great, which is nice. It's nice to be able to kind of get in, do the audit, everything is ready to go for us. And then we can kind of get out of your hair. You can get back to things that are maybe more fun than having an audit. So it is great when they go like that. So I appreciate all the help to make that happen. With that, so like our focus of the audit, we're taking a look at the numbers. So if you're reviewing profit and loss statements, each month or every so often, you with the finance committee, we're taking a look at those. And are those numbers presented in accordance with accounting standards? And then we issue an opinion on the audit. And we issued an unmodified opinion, which is like a clean opinion. That's to say that, we didn't come across material errors, that the numbers you're looking at are in accordance with accounting guidance. And that kind of goes along, I think, with the last maybe bullet in that top section of just didn't have any significant entries. There's a couple small changes with the, allowance and the pledge drives, but nothing major. Which I think that's to say, just as a board, hopefully kind of the reassurance there is just the numbers you're looking at each month, are hopefully fairly accurate. Like you're looking at numbers that aren't bad, which is good. So didn't have a lot of adjustments, had a clean audit. Just thinking about that as a board, hopefully is a good thing to hear. It's not the focus of our audit, but we do take a look at internal controls as well. Not super in depth, but just taking a kind of a cursory look at those. And we didn't come across anything that seemed, alarming or concerning from that perspective. No significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses, which is good. I felt like I always say like nonprofits, like one of the best controls you can have is having an active and a good board that's involved in oversight, and certainly have that here. A lot of dual controls over cash at events, multiple reviews and approvals throughout the process of paying bills, getting checks in and reviewing reconciliations. So again, don't look super in depth into that, but from what we did look at, no concerns there. It looks like things were in good shape and really kind of buttoned down. So that's good. As far as like the financial statement summary kind of goes, just big changes from the year. I think one of the larger ones was just collective bargaining agreement was a new one was signed during 2024, and so saw maybe a larger than normal increase in wages. I think that was signed with local 2304, that's another Wagner client that I've worked on. So it's kind of cool to see the full circle of it. But so with that being signed during the year, a bit more in wages than maybe the typical year's increase. And then the revenue side too, that was also it was a good year in terms of just overall revenue grew. And then I know just from talking with Doug and with Susan that one of the kind of initiatives or goals was to not be quite as reliant on the pledge drives for those contributions, to be able to make sure we're drawn from other sources. And pledge drives actually went down a little bit compared as far as like total dollars amount compared to previous years, but overall contributions went up during the year. And so there's more coming in from IRA distributions from some major donors, and so that's good to see. I think we're kind of met the goal that was set earlier, and again seeing that uptick in overall revenue during the year. Those are probably the two largest changes. As far as like footnotes go on the financial report, nothing new or changing really there. One of the things that we report on is assets with donor restrictions. So if a donor gives you a gift to use for journalism fund or for underwriting, something like that, that goes into a separate category. And there's a footnote that kind of outlines those pieces. But that's not, I guess, not really new, but just, I think one of the more informative notes on the actual audit report. Otherwise, said there really wasn't much, I guess, like as far as like changes go that were like alarming or just like, wild changes from previous years. The CPB grants, that was pretty status quo as far as similar grant structure. No non-compliance with that, and seems like it tends to, I can only being on the audit for a year now, but it seems like just from looking at previous years too, tends to increase a little bit each year, which was the case again in 2024. So then what I do want to focus on a little bit more is just the bottom section here is a few kind of ratios or things to think about. And in talking with Hannah, we kind of plucked, these three as being ones that would be relevant to Back Porch Radio that we thought would be good to go through. So the first one is functional allocation of expenses. This was an accounting requirement that started like about 5 years ago that requires nonprofits to take total expenses and then split them into 3 buckets: program activities, management activities, and then fundraising activities. And usually kind of done by estimates. We estimate, about X% of our time is going towards this and X% towards that. And then there's certain, bills and activities like paying for the tower that's like all program, or there's certain functions that are all management or all fundraising. But why this ends up being important for nonprofits is just if you're soliciting to donors, all else equal, it's nice to be able to say that you spend a majority of your funds on program activities on your organization's mission. And so typically what we recommend for a 501c3 is to be somewhere around at least like kind of 60% or so of time and effort and of expenses going to a program, which that's been right about where it's been the last 5 years. And I would even say probably with Back Porch Radio, something a little bit lower than 60% is probably about right, just because it does feel like there's maybe a little more hustle and grind in terms of it getting your donations than maybe nonprofits that rely on these grants that are recurring that come in every year. like you have got the pledge drives and you're just actively, I think, trying to solicit with some a little bit higher fundraising than maybe for some other 501c3 nonprofits. So no real swings in those percentages from year to year, and I think it's certainly a reasonable percentage of kind of where Back Porch Radio is at.
Before you leave that,
Sure.
What is in the bucket of management in general?
Yeah.
That has gone up appreciably in the last 4 years. What's in that bucket?
Yeah, so probably the big like like the audit is a good
Okay.
audit. Using numbers for nonprofit, just like Mary Joy's time is probably perfect.
Okay.
Like there's going to be some like staff time that's going to go to that. Anything that has to do typically with like a board meeting, if there's any expenses that go along with that. Basically anything that goes in kind of the oversight and like that. It's kind of like the catch-all bucket for things that don't belong in program or don't belong in fundraising. And it's
Okay.
kind of that catch-all. And
Okay.
I would say that 18% honestly probably a little bit low compared to like other like I think that I don't see any concerns with that. Like I would say if you start getting over 25%, that's maybe a little bit odd. But usually like the program and then fundraising, those are kind of the drivers of everything. And then management in general is kind of just, it's a lot of fixed fees. It's not a lot that like you can change. Like you have to have an audit, you have to have a bookkeeper, you have, so there's certain things that are you just need to have for the nonprofits like operations and activities.
Thank
you. The next one is taking a look at fundraising efficiency. So this is again, we kind of got 5 years of data here, and it's taking a look at for every dollar of fundraising underwriting expenses that you have, and what are you raising in contribution, underwriting, and event income. And so let's see here, that's $3.4 for every dollar spent. Again, this is one that I would say it should be generally between 2 and 4 is probably a good benchmark to be in, which solidly in that range. Really to kind of be above 4, it's probably going to be like a C3 that's like getting just these large recurring grants, and that's like a lot of their funding is coming from there. They don't have to spend a lot of time and effort to get those. They just kind of are coming in on a regular basis, like having a bunch of CPP type of grants. Like that's the kind of organization that's going to have a little bit higher. And then, a situation like this, I think, is one that it's probably pretty good to be almost at $3.50 for every dollar spent. So, and that's one that's trended, I guess, a little bit up from the previous year. And but overall, though, in a pretty consistent range. There might be one year where you have a big donation that you didn't expect that's going to bump it up or down a little bit. But so no concerns there. And then the last kind of ratio that we have is just taking a look at reserves. So we start with, what are like your liquid assets? If you had to start paying bills, like right now, like what could you use immediately to pay those bills? So cash, investments, or the annuity, I guess, in this case. And then, receivables that hopefully will be cashed very soon, like on the pledge drives. And then, you have all of those items at December 31st. If the contribution stopped flowing today, how many months could you go before you needed to like get another dollar to start fundraising like just the organization? And so that's what that bottom number is just how many months can you go without getting another dollar? And so usually we recommend being around like 3 to 6 months is a healthy ratio, having about that in your reserve. And so comfortably above that, or on the high end of that range, and even a little bit above kind of that 3 to 6 month range. So I guess no real concerns there either in it being in a good spot that way.
But if that's based on the 5-year average, the current number is going to be much higher than that because of the new bargaining agreement, right? Because of the new personnel costs.
Well, the current so
a lower number of months.
The lower number of months, but the average monthly expense is going to be higher
Correct.
than the 5-year average.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like all else equal, typically whatever I see what you're saying. Yeah, so like the expenses like right now, I see what you're saying. Like a little bit higher, but even so, still within that 3 to 6 month range.
Okay.
And I guess again, not being involved with the audit before, I don't have a ton of like prior year experience to draw on, but like from kind of what I have gone through this year and just talking with Hannah, it doesn't feel like there's probably like huge dollar swings like year to year in expenses like some nonprofits might have. Like for the most part, does it feel like kind of business as usual from year to year? So I guess I can't go back to like think about 2021 and 2022 and like what might have tweaked one of those the other way, but
Doug, was that COVID money in 21 and 2022 that gave us that bump it up to
Yeah.
the nines?
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it was.
yeah.
Yeah, because we received, I want to say $100,000 through PPP,
Yeah.
and then in addition, CPB gave us an extra $127,000 that one year.
Thank you.
That was over and above the community service
Yeah.
grant. So yeah,
It's changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is a good point though, that like, yeah, like not using the 5-year average, like using like this most recent year's current year expenses, it's probably a little bit less than 6 months, but
Yeah.
still again, above that kind of healthy range of 3 to 6 months, like somewhere in there is where like when we start getting below 3 months, that's when it gets a little concerning. Like, okay, like what if COVID happened right now? Like what would we do? Or like, so,
Do
in a
we
good
have a-
spot there.
Do we have a policy? I've been on some nonprofit boards where we actually have a policy of how many months or percentage of annual budget should be held in reserve. I haven't heard one discussed. And I'm not trying to adopt one in this moment, but if we don't, particularly with some of the challenges coming ahead, we may want to think about that,
Maybe something for finance to look at.
you know, like just for
Yeah.
example, minimum 6 months,
Yeah.
you know.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but is that where last year was the first year I think that the annuity opened up, right? In 2023, I believe, and so maybe that was kind of a step in that direction of setting something aside that's not just, I guess, not just a cash fund either, but something that's accumulating a little bit of interest each year. Other questions on those pieces? Or
Questions? Anybody? Well, is now the time to also ask questions about the financial statements?
sure, if you have a particular question, yeah.
Yeah, on note 3 regarding the land,
Okay.
which is on our books at $13,000. The property next door, 114 South Bedford, which is an identical property, except we've got the corner lot, is assessed at, the land is assessed at $150,000. Why are we at 13,000 when they're at 150,000? And is that good for us or bad for us?
It's neither good nor
Okay.
bad. So did they acquire that land recently? Do you know? Was that like somewhat?
No, I think,
It's on
no.
the tax rolls.
It's just
Oh,
on
on the tax.
record.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That's its assessment.
Sure. Yep. So, so we talked, I guess, in the beginning about like just the numbers being in accordance with accounting guidance. So that's one of the things that, like, one of the pieces of accounting guidance is that assets like land get just valued at historical cost, whatever you paid for them. So even though they are
Okay,
worth more now, it still gets reflected as that on the books here. But like obviously, but yeah, so if you go to sell, you probably get close to that. What is it, 150? Is
Yeah.
that, yeah, 150,000? Yeah. So and the reason being is that like we want to report, I guess, on like, you know, I guess we don't want to report a value of land if you're not planning to sell it. That's that much higher. And then so when it does get sold or when you do purchase new land, you know, that's when that value will change. But yeah, I'm sure it's worth quite a bit more than, I'm pretty prime real estate down
Yeah,
here where
yeah,
it's
yeah.
probably worth quite a bit more than 13,000 at
Yeah.
this point. Cool. Yep. Good question.
Anybody else have any questions before I ask any more? There's some useful numbers in here to know. I mean, the number of, the percentage of how much money we get from pledge drives and the number of volunteers we have. And there's useful information here just beyond, you know, the knowing the audit. How did we handle the fact that the mural project is defunct and isn't proceeding? How did we account for the end of the mural project?
So at this point, like it's not planning to proceed anymore. Is that the?
It's not planning to proceed, and we offered people some of their money back.
Okay. Did they
Well,
say?
You didn't say it, where we offered everyone their money back. Some people took it
Yeah.
back. To
Was
other
that in 2025?
Good question.
Oh,
When
it
did that-
probably was. So it's not,
Okay.
okay, so it'll be covered in next year.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, anybody else have any questions for Jordan while he's here? Okay, any other advice for us? Any other parting comments you want to Chair?
I don't have anything, like I said, it was a smooth audit. And I don't have much else to share because I don't have anything bad to really report, which is
Okay.
a good thing.
Right,
Like
right.
they're not always
Quiet
as
on it.
chipper, so that's good. But yeah, no, I appreciate you having me, and great first year working on Backwards Radio. Look forward to it again next year.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, it was great to work with you.
Okay.
Can I just, and this isn't for
Yeah,
Jordan, you're welcome to
okay.
stay, it's a public meeting. As I looked at these key financial indicators, I thought of two things. One, and I know we've been through lots of treasurers in my 2 years on the board, but this is not pointing fingers at anyone or anything more, thinking forward. For a while, we had what I thought was a very helpful dashboard. And I would love to see that reinstituted. And I know when, I think it was Dean working with Mary Joy who maybe first got it going. He appropriately asked us, as did Mary Joy, well, what would board members like to see in it, right? So, a condensed view. And I look at these three and think, wow, seeing how these adjust on a month-to-month basis and how we're doing would be very useful information as a board member. It's great to see
I
it
have
from
that
back
on
in, what's that?
I have that on the finance report for today's meeting to ask you about.
Yeah. So that's my comment, but not really a question.
Okay, well, there's nothing further for Jordan.
Okay.
Thanks very much. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for
Thank you,
having me.
Jordan.
Have a good rest of your
Now,
meeting.
should we formally accept this? Is that the proper motion, or has it been delivered and that's all we need to do?
Nope, nothing need to do
Okay.
there. It's already been filed because we had the
Okay.
CPP deadline was
Okay.
probably just the other day, I think.
Okay,
But I think it was in before that, but
Okay.
I think the actual deadline was 7/15.
well, great. Thank you very much.
Right, yeah, but we had it done well. before
Yeah, I
that.
say it's been done for a while, but
I don't like to be last minute. with
no,
anything.
that's why it was nice. Everything is very comfortable this year, as far as just-
Yeah, and even the transition with Hannah handling the upload of the financial statements and everything, it went really smoothly, so I was so grateful.
Okay, thank you very much, Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question, it
Okay.
doesn't seem like the
I'm-
guest network is working. Does
Yeah.
the regular one work or are they both out? I'm on the guest.
I'm on.
I'm also struggling
Likely
with
to be
getting
temporary.
on.
Yeah, mine
closed.
was down too. Tough to take notes. Must have
Mine's
taken all.
on. I take notes.
I think
I
the
take minutes.
non-guest, is
Yeah.
the non-guest password still community?
Yeah.
That sound right?
Community, you said?
That's what it used to be.
I don't think guest
Lowercase.
has password, but what about the
I don't
other
think
one?
guest has a
Yes,
No, no,
band.
this,
not
I'm sorry, I was
effective.
saying for the secured one.
Gotcha, okay.
I used to be that. I'm not.
Is it all
100%
lowercase?
With truth to power,
Oh, is that, yeah.
or what was it?
I said community,
It's
but
community radio.
community radio.
Tom knows.
Lowercase. Yes.
Looks like it's working.
Okay,
Thank you,
we're
everybody.
back. Okay, then back to the agenda. The next item is the approval of last month's minutes, which are in the folder of last month. Any questions or requests for clarification or corrections?
I move to approve the minutes from June 2025.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? There are no communications from the public that I'm aware of. There's a written presence report in the folder, which I think should be a responsibility, just like committees are to file reports. You can see some of the things I did over the past month. Happy to answer any questions or respond to any comments about that. If there are none, the one thing that's not in that report that I'd like us to do is you may have seen that a longtime supporter of ours, Matthew Hay, passed away, according to Susan. He's a longtime donor, and I think it would be appropriate for us to send the family a note of sympathy and appreciation for his and the fact that as part of the obituary, suggestion to make donations in lieu of flowers. So if I could get a motion to authorize a letter of sympathy and appreciation to the family.
I move. I second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
I thought in the email string I read that somebody, I thought I read in the email string that somebody was already doing.
Well, Susan's gonna send a letter on her
Okay,
behalf, but I thought a
Okay.
letter on behalf of the board
Yes.
as well.
Okay, thank you.
'Cause it-
Okay.
So we all good on that? Okay, then moving, thank you for that. There was no executive committee action since the last meeting, which brings us then to the treasurer's report. Grant,
I still don't have any internet access. So.
oh,
Let me see if I can get us up on some of the other ones around.
I'll give you my hotspot for now. And I just messaged Tom as well.
I'm on.
Yeah.
Oh, and Susan has her hand up.
It's
Oh, yeah,
community,
good.
it's community radio, all lowercase.
I tried that several times and.
And did you try to go,
Just into guest, ward guest?
No, guest doesn't need a password.
Yes.
That doesn't
Right.
work. And the regular one, I tried community radio all over.
I wonder if you need to, oh, is that a WRT computer or is that yours?
It's mine.
I wonder if you need to reboot it, because like everybody else is
I
on.
actually
No,
rebooted it
I'm
when I
not.
started.
No, you're not?
All three of
Yeah.
us are not.
Yeah.
That end of the
You're in a bad
table.
zone. Get over here.
Yes, Susan, yes.
Did I miss the part where people introduce themselves? Because I have no idea who the new people,
Oh, I'm
matching
sorry,
the
yes.
names
Okay.
to the new people. I'd really appreciate knowing who's there and who they are.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. You know me, we'll go around this way.
Jeff Spitzer Resnick, been on board a couple years, chair of personnel committee and host of the Hajiro World Music Radio Show.
I'm Nicole Alley. I am the secretary, and I am also the engineer for Thursday Night News.
Terry Bowes, member at large, first meeting.
Julia McCanley. I am members of DEI programming and task force for the future, at least.
And celebrated her year's anniversary this month, so
I did,
congratulations.
yeah. Yep. Indeed.
I'm Grant Foster, new listener sponsor seat and temporary treasurer.
Hi, Susan. Carlos here, new member. It's my first meeting. Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Susan. Shannon Hebler, she, her pronouns. I'm not the new kid anymore. Thank you. Welcome. And I'm on finance and DEI currently.
I'm Doug Holtz, Business Development Director, the staff representative on the Board of Directors. I may be the longest running board member.
Longer than Stu.
Lucky.
I don't know, were you before? I think I was before you.
Well, I've been on since 15.
No, then you outranked me by a couple of years.
That's,
Tim Schneider was still on the board then, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm Tanya Graham. Let's see. I am vice president on the personnel committee and executive committee. 3.5 decade listener.
Then Phil.
Yeah, this is Phil Ryan, the picture of the WRT mug from West Virginia.
You on yet?
Yeah, that gave me enough time and
Yeah.
hotspot.
All right, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can run through it.
Hold on, Susan has her hand up.
Oh.
yes, Susan.
One last thing, the four new people, right? I have
Yeah.
mugs, I have special mugs for you guys too, so I'll be in touch to meet up with giving you your own special travel mug.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Swag.
Okay.
All right.
Grant, you're up.
Finance committee report. First item, we just got the real live version of the 2024 audit. As you heard, no findings or concerns. Nice work. Second item, we reviewed the kind of looming pending CPB funding change potential. I understand that the decision is expected in a couple days. The original thought was to kind of call an emergency meeting once that was announced. We talked through it a little bit at the last meeting, and since it's really going to be primarily impacting or only impacting next year, not this year's budget, and we have next year's budget in process, we decided there's really nothing we need to do in the immediate term, and instead just need to potentially be incorporating it into next year's budget plans. We're not planning on having an emergency finance committee meeting on that one. Related to the 2026 budget, Doug will be working to get whatever is available pulled together and sent to finance committee by September 3rd for us to review at our September 10th meeting. There will be a few things that won't be done at that time, like compensation, health insurance might need some final adjustments, but we'll at least get a good sense of it. We're also going to be meeting with Nick from Numbers for Nonprofits at our next meeting and talk a little bit about capital budgeting. There was an outstanding item around a high yield savings account. We've got a few options identified, and Doug's taken a look at some other local options, and we'll be getting us a recommendation for our August meeting around that. There's an annuity in Dave's name at Ocean View. We're working to get that cashed out and transferred over to WORT accounts. Susan had a good recommendation to save us some money by paying a year in advance on our constant contact charges. We can save 30%, even though costs are going up a little bit otherwise. So finance committee recommended doing that. And we confirmed our regular meeting to be second Wednesday of the month at 5, except not next month, because we want to meet with Nick and he wasn't available at that time. So we'll be meeting right before the board meeting next month. And then on the future agenda items, this is where one of the things we talked about that we're going to talk about at our next meeting is the question of dashboards, KPIs, et cetera. So finance will be talking about what we think might be good, but would really be interested if there's things that board members would like to see, what financial measures or details would be helpful for you all to get the level of view that you're trying to get out of our finances. I heard the suggestion of maybe these 3 that were on the audit. So not putting anybody on the spot right now, but if you think of anything, if you have any ideas, suggestions, things you've seen on other boards, just send them my way and we will discuss at our next finance meeting. Yeah.
To the old timers, I may sound like a broken record, but to me, the most important thing for board members to exercise their fiduciary responsibility who are not on the finance committee, so we're receiving, the bird's eye view, is notes of here's something to worry about, here's a big change, anything like that. And there could, or, if there's none, fine, in a particular month, nothing of note. But, something going way up, something going way down, some spending money faster than we thought we were going to in a particular line item, much larger than expected donations, whatever. If everything's cooking along according to the budget, great, say that. But, invariably, there's going to be some things that aren't, because budget's just a planning document. So that's what I look for.
A previous meeting, we had suggested like a red, yellow, green light system that would be implemented to then present it that way of like.
Right, and then obviously if there's a red in particular note that goes with it, right?
Yeah.
Yellow may or may not need it, depending on how close the yellow is to orange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, and if people have further ideas to give them to Grant.
I had one other comment, and nobody else, but I'll see it if there's other questions or comments from other people.
You have the floor.
I believe if rescission passes, it comes into effect in the fall of this year. Because it's federal fiscal year
It's for next year's money.
Right.
We already
But some of which I believe, and I don't know the timing of when we receive CPP grants, starts October 1, 2025. We're on a calendar year, right? Federal fiscal year and our calendar year doesn't line up. I don't know if we get all our money front loaded, then that's a huge impact this year, and it won't not accounted for by our budget. If typically it's spread out, and I'm pleading ignorance here, then it would be maybe a quarter of it because we get a monthly payment or something. So I just wanted to raise that as it's not necessarily like no impact on this year's budget, unless someone can convince me otherwise.
Someone said we received all of this year's funding already. Multiple people
But
did that.
this year
We
It-
received funding for the 2025 allocation. The first 2/3 of the allocation for 2026 happens in November.
So
So yes, it does impact by a month. And then the 2/3 or this remaining third is when we complete the annual financial report in July.
well, it's more than a month. It's, in other words, it's within this year's budget. So it's
Right.
a big loss to this year's anticipated income. This calendar year, our budget year doesn't match up with the federal budget. The 1/3, assuming it happens, and we'll know it happens before we pass our budget, we will account for in creating our 2026 budget. But knowing how we'll handle the budgeted expenses of those last 3 months in particular, when we're not gonna get 2/3 of our CPV money likely, is important for the board to figure out. I'm not saying in this moment, obviously, but probably before October.
Wait, I want to make sure we all understand. The adopted 2025 budget includes money that for October, November, December, that we presumed we would be getting because we assumed CPV would continue.
Right, in November, the November payment.
Okay, so there will be a hole in the 2025 budget by virtue of the rescission.
Yes.
Okay, I was under
I
the
have no
impression
idea
that
why
there
that
would
didn't
not.
come up at our finance committee meeting.
I'm sorry?
I said, I don't know why that didn't come up at our finance committee meeting.
No,
All news to me.
It's
mean-
true, and it accounts for 66,000.
So the Senate's failure to block the rescission has just knocked a $66,000 hole in our adopted budget.
Yes,
Okay, I think we're back to the emergency meeting. Or at least we're back to an expedited meeting to figure out how we're gonna deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately this is all about how we're gonna manage our expenses moving forward.
Right.
And, primarily for 2026, but, my understanding is we're not gonna get any view of next year's budget until September. So unless we can accelerate the timeline, there's not much to do until we're looking at the actual projected expenses and the recommendations for where we're gonna cut that
we're
money.
talking about for the last, if we normally get in November, which brings us a big cash infusion, plus it's what was assumed in this year's budget. Let's just assume it goes through. I know it's not done, but looks like it will. If everything else is as projected, we will have a $66,000 deficit this year. This calendar year. And there are many options, including, okay, suck it up, our reserves will go lower. We don't have to cut anything. But I think it's something we need to be thoughtful about. I've heard discussions about cutting Democracy Now!, BBC News, whatever. I don't know what impact that will be, whether we can save $66,000 in 3 months. I suspect not, but might be some of it. So these are the kinds of things that we ultimately as a board, but certainly starting with, I would say, staff and finance, need to figure out. Whether it needs to be done before your August meeting, I don't have an opinion on whether you need an emergency meeting or not. Because it's really, even if it's absolute gonna happen, not gonna happen financial hit until November. But I wouldn't wait till November, obviously.
Susan,
So we pretty much, I don't know when you guys read my report, but on Monday, I got another $25,000 from a major donor. And I have several more in the line, but we're at $103,000 in the maintenance fund, which is estimated to be about maybe 108 if we add a little cushion in there for the things you always find when you do renovations. At this point, people are eager to give us money, and the tariffs haven't caused major problems for people with the kind of income that we're talking about. I could definitely switch my focus from the maintenance fund to if indeed we've lost the CPB, to talking to major donors about the fact that we have money to make up this year. Now, I don't think we have what the 66 or whatever thousand, because I'm way ahead of budget in my department. So that would lead me to believe that that 66 is probably an overestimate. But if the direction of the board is that I should fundraise specifically to cover that, then I would switch from fundraising for that to fundraising for general purposes to cover any CPB loss. But I want to make sure we actually have lost it for sure before I start that, because I don't want to be, you know, they've said we're going to lose it so many different times. So
Yeah, likewise, I'd like to add too, that that's gonna change my whole spin on selling underwriting spots to local businesses. And definitely expressing how urgent it is for them to step up and support community radio. So, I mean, it's a horrible thing, but it's a great pitch.
Yeah, I think we probably need to start with a finance committee meeting that focuses on the hard numbers and the
Yeah, I'll do a
timing of
lot
the
of-
hard numbers, and then have Susan and Doug lead a conversation on where to pivot to. I mean, we can't proceed with that tonight, but it's obviously a high priority for us to
Yeah.
focus on.
And I think it's also important to note that loss of $60,000 or $70,000 is not gonna bring us below the 6-month reserve funds that we need to remain healthy. So even if we took that hit financially, we're still healthy as an organization financially.
I brought it up not
Yeah.
because I think, oh my God, the sky is falling, it's a crisis, but it is, as both Doug and Susan have said, it's actually, we can look at it as an opportunity for fundraising, but also we need to plan for it. And I'm totally fine with finance doing it, whether it's at its next meeting or at a expedited meeting. That's up to it or the committee. But I mean, we flagged the issue.
No, I think it's important you raised it, because I misunderstood. I thought we were clear for 2025, and so I'm glad that you brought that up so we could all get a accurate sense of where we're at on that. Anybody else have anything else on this aspect, the finances? Grant, I think you got your work cut out for
Welcome to the board.
Don't worry.
We're glad to have you.
But here comes your chance to avoid that responsibility. We're going to elect
There you
the.
go.
Oh, right.
We're going-
Not official yet.
We're going to
Alone.
elect the
Don't worry.
2025, 2026 officers. And first of all, I have to apologize for the way I conducted the election of the temporary officers. As some of you may recall, I was not expecting to get reelected to the board. I was frankly woefully unprepared to chair that meeting last week. And the way I called for the election, I called for nominations of a secretary, nominations of a treasurer, and then I called for nomination for me and Tanya. And that was a woefully inappropriate way for me to phrase that motion. And I apologize for doing that. So I'll try and do it correctly this time. Are there nominations for the office of secretary?
I nominate Nicole Alley.
Second. Are there further nominations? Are there further nominations? Are there further nominations? Seeing none, the board casts a unanimous vote for Nicole Ali as secretary.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there nominations for the office of treasurer?
I nominate Grant Foster.
A second.
Would you accept the office of? Are there further nominations for the office of treasurer? Further nominations for the office of treasurer? Further nominations for the office of treasurer? Seeing none, we'll cast a unanimous ballot for Grant Foster for treasurer. Thank you for serving. Are there nominations for the office of vice president?
I nominate Tanya.
Second. Are there further nominations for the office of vice president? Are there further nominations for the office of vice president? Are there further nominations for the office of vice president? Seeing none, we will cast a unanimous ballot for Tanya Graham for vice president. And you can now conduct the final vote.
Yes. Are there any nominations for the office of president?
I nominate Stu Levitan.
Excellent. A second. Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Any further nominations? Stu, the board unanimously accepts you and promotes you as president.
Thank you, appreciate this. I appreciate that, I'll try and I'll do the best I can. So thank you for that. This is gonna be a good board. I'm so encouraged by this board. The board you're succeeding was a good board. I think this one is gonna be an excellent board. I'm really excited. We've got our work cut out for us with the headwinds we're facing outside this building, but the station's in good shape. We are the stewards of a really important part of Madison. You cannot overestimate how important we are. And the fact that we have been entrusted to preserve and protect and make this entity continue to thrive is a serious responsibility. It's a serious opportunity. And I'm really excited about what we're going to do over the next year. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for electing us as your officers, and we appreciate it. We'll do our best. Staff reports. We still have Susan with us. So Susan, well, actually we've got Doug. We got everybody. Is Tom with us? Well, let's start from the top. Tom,
What?
anything you want? Wow. Anything you want to call to our attention in your report?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Tom?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tom, you had the roof in there, right?
Yep.
You had the roof comments about the replacing the roof.
And the patching.
I actually have in my report, I have that I was up there on my hands and knees getting filthy patching.
And the ants, yes, and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good, very well. No, but we only have one bid.
We only have one bid. Everybody else, I think there was 4 other roofing companies. Some do not have a commercial license that I could work with. The other ones have ghosted me completely.
Okay.
So, I mean, at this point in the season, we're not going to get anybody because they're filthy busy. So the roof will be next year, and hopefully that gives me the winter to get somebody who has some time to actually talk to me about it.
Any other questions of Tom on his report?
Thank you for your reliable service, Tom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man.
Okay.
Damn ants.
Well, red
Tom,
ants at that, you know.
Are the windows,
I think
are the
Joe-
new windows in?
No, that's scheduled for the week of August 11th. They'll be going in.
August. Okay, gotcha. All right, and do you know what type of windows they are?
Basically double paned sealed windows. There was some discussion as to whether we wanted windows that would open to let a nice breeze in, but I just knew, and the staff agreed with me, that there would be some thunderstorm at 2 a.m. All the windows would be open and nobody would remember to shut them, and it would not be a good thing. So it's just basically going to be commercial windows to replace the hand hewn windows that have been in the building since 1982.
Nice.
Someone on the board wanted to make sure that they were see-through windows.
But they were what?
See-through. Can we see through them?
Yes, with nice paisley curtains.
Any other questions of Tom? Okay, thanks very much. And you know what, I didn't blow your cover. I just, made it, I minimized it. Doug, anything on your report you want to call to our attention?
Not in particular. Just if you're into folk and country music, be sure to check out our next fundraising event at the Baroque, August 23rd. Bill and Bobby Malone are coming back to town and doing a special performance, along with several of our folk and country hosts. So it's gonna be a big deal. So
Got my tickets.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Bill and Bobby will be live from the studio on Wednesday, and they'll be on Madison Book Beat on Monday. So it'll be like Bill and Bobby week.
Totally.
It'll
Be
very
fantastic.
Bring your books for signature.
Yeah. Any questions of Doug on his report?
few new underwriters as well.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, underwriting's actually been really picking up. So that's very encouraging.
Susan, anything you want to call to our attention?
Subsequent to writing the report, I've got so many meetings with donors scheduled with some of our major donors that I've been reaching out to, that I decided to cut the July 25th, 26th information drive, where the hosts for the Friday and Saturday shows were going to explain other ways of giving, and instead switch that to a more intensive promo launch to reach listeners. Because obviously the list that I have is donors, and telling donors how else they can donate is not as valuable as telling listeners all the different ways. Get rid of your old car that some aunt left you when she died or something. So I just want to use the time. I'm really afraid of, I know it didn't happen, and I'm not really looking to it deep enough because I think some things just didn't happen, but I'm really worried about the tariffs and a possible recession. So I'm really trying to capitalize right now, and also all the talk that's going on right now about the CPB thing. This is the time that I really want to hit major donors. So if we can do this through promos, and I have more control over the messaging, because I've tried to explain IRA distributions to a couple of our hosts who aren't of an age where they do any of that. And it's not as simple as I thought it was getting them to understand some of the things that I was going to be asking them to do. So that's my only thing. Oh, and I'm 25% ahead of budget right now.
Woohoo! Susan, I had a question. One of the numbers that jumped out at me in the audit was the percentage of your revenue that comes from pledge drives, which was in the low 20s. Are you comfortable with that number? Is that the right number? Is that?
What do you mean low 20s?
It was like 26% came from pledge drives, and the rest.
Okay, here's what's complicated and what we're changing this year. So real quickly, the donor database, I wanted to keep track of IRA distributions, because you don't know, you've got to measure something in order to work on increasing it. So people who paid their pledges with IRA distributions, we had to choose between making it an IRA distribution or a pledge drive. So the numbers are not that low. We've taken stuff out of there. Now we're reclassifying. So now, instead of making those two different campaigns, the IRA distributions are going to be one of the ways to pay for something. So so you'll see a rise next year in pledge drives, is what I'm basically trying to say.
Similarly, if someone pays their pledge drive from, say, a donor advised fund.
Same thing. We're tracking donor advised funds. So we're changing all of that in the donor database so that we have how they pay for things separate from what the actual campaign is.
Okay.
So car
Right.
donations are one campaign, etc.
Okay, yeah.
But to me, the most noteworthy thing about your report, and I hope we don't lose this, you just guys, obviously, along with Mary Joy and finance and all that, account how is proper to account. But I don't want to lose what was extremely striking to me, how we actually get more from major donors than we get in just regular pledge drive money. And I'm not saying some of that doesn't come in during pledge drive. I get it, it does. But it's something to think about, particularly for our future development director. And I think, Susan, you have highlighted this, that cultivating those major donors is going to be, and continues to be, I should say, very, very important. And thank you for highlighting that.
Did I have in there that in 2014 it was 71%, 71,000 from major donors, and now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do plan, when we do hire someone, I do plan on going on a welcome the new person tour to all of the major donors, and I'm preparing the ones that I'm talking to now to say that I'm leaving, and I will be introducing the new person to them. And there are notes. Almost everyone has a note in the donor database in the top 100 donors that gives background on each donor. So that's all in there.
Thank you. Anybody, any other questions of Susan on her report? Okay, seeing none. Nate, anything you want to call to our attention on your report?
Let me pull it up. I think the only other thing that I'd add now that we're talking about the CPB is that we have some plans in place and we can work on fleshing them out in relatively short order for particularly losing the BBC, which is a big part of the CPB funding. And then happy to have other discussions about programming costs and approaches down the line.
Is it a fait accompli? It's not that we have to have the CPB to have the BBC, but the CPB pays for the BBC.
Correct.
Is it a fait accompli within your mind and the department that if the CPB money goes away, BBC will go away?
Yes.
Okay,
I can explain that reasoning if anyone wants to go over it, but it's very expensive.
okay.
Um,
So we're most likely anticipating a world without the BBC headlines.
correct.
Oh, yeah, Grant.
Just to this question of timing and fiscal year, so do we, as a condition of having received the 25 monies, is there a date that we have to continue to pay for BBC through?
We paid for BBC at the beginning of June. Is that correct? So we're actually on the
Right.
hook for it for another 8 months.
We've already paid for it
more
through
than that.
June of next year, so
Whoa.
the payment in 2026 would be the one, I mean, that's why we're looking at 2026 budgeting.
Mhm,
We wouldn't put it in that budget.
mhm.
Wait a minute, so are we, so is there a way to get out of that contract? Or are we committed to paying
We
for
already
it
paid for it.
beyond the CPB funding it?
It's already paid for.
I mean, they're not gonna give us.
It was a
money back.
year contract. I mean, and that was the 6-month overlap. Because we had been paid by CPB basically for half of it,
Okay.
so we could not sign the contract,
Okay, so
and it's an
there,
annual contract.
okay, so something else is gonna have to underwrite the fact that we're on the hook for how many months? That is that?
Well, we've already paid
Through
Okay.
June of
through
next
June of
year.
next year.
We're not on the hook beyond
So
what
we
we've already
can't-
paid.
Right, we
Oh,
can't,
okay, so,
You can't cancel it.
so even though our money, we no longer get any money after October, we've gotten all the money for that.
Right. The money
Okay,
we would
okay.
receive in October would be used to pay this in next June. So we're not like behind the curve yet.
Okay, okay.
But-
In
But-
June next year.
Okay, but
would be.
we got sufficient we already received sufficient funding to pay for what we've contracted for.
Yeah,
Yep, started.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm waiting for Doug to.
Oh, yeah.
Well-
Yes.
Yes,
because we paid the bill.
Okay, 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 fine, okay.
that would, yeah, and what comes into question is like next month, it would be 6 months of BBC, which between the satellite interconnect and the acquisition of CPB, we're looking at about $30,000 annually.
Okay,
So I mean, that's the level of money we're talking about, is about $30,000 to carry BBC for an entire year.
so it'll be a big savings on next year's budget,
Mhm.
which will mitigate some of the CPB loss.
Right, it would mitigate
The payment we
like
would get next
a
year.
lot of the restricted
Yeah,
funds,
almost all the
actually,
restricted funds.
because the restricted funds can only go toward acquisition of programming.
Right.
do we think that getting rid of BBC is something that would have to go to the programming committee, or is that just so necessary that it's not?
I'd be happy to present something to the programming committee about that, but I would consider this very necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's worth discussion, but I don't anticipate there being any changes or issues or thoughts really.
Well, the only question, I don't have any debate about getting rid of it for the amount of money we spent, but something needs to fill that time.
Yeah.
And so that's a programming / news
That-
issue.
yes.
And, which again, an opportunity, hopefully.
Yeah.
So somebody writes headlines, we find somebody with a British accent. What's the problem?
Some employees.
Well, and then staff level, we've already been throwing around some ideas,
Okay.
so it's something we've already been
Okay,
had on our minds, so.
okay.
So
Um,
I want to understand a little better. So everybody's comfortable not having BBC. Because we don't get dedicated funds, any funds we might raise in it, in the future in excess of what we have raised, we wouldn't want BBC if we didn't have to pay for it with those dedicated funds.
It's kind of a question of where's the low hanging fruit, and where's the low hanging expenses. BBC is a service that's available
In a lot of places.
in a lot of places. Although we do offer it on air, which isn't offered
Right.
in a lot of places.
Right.
But compared to the local programming that could be done in its place, locally produced here, whether it be doing a local headlines segment for 3 minutes, because we're talking about 3-minute segments that air a certain number of times a day.
3 to 5.
3 to 5, much like our Insurgent Radio kiosk, which is already produced locally, and run several times a day, much in the same way in different slots. So there is already a model there, not necessarily with the content, but like I said, staff has been discussing, and obviously this is a news department and programming department issue or programming committee issue. But it is one of the things on the table because it's something that we could get rid of without affecting staff levels, quite frankly.
Yeah, Julia.
I just wanted to call attention to a couple hands in the
Oh,
chat.
yeah. Thank you. Phil and Phil.
I'm just wondering, has anyone mentioned how much the BBC subscription or fee costs?
They just said $30,000 a year.
30,000. Okay, I missed that. And is it worth mentioning that to listeners that, hey, if this is something that you find valuable, that's the whole we would need to come up with?
And
I personally think most listeners would say we'd prefer local programming.
Nate and then Doug.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn because maybe Susan can answer that question a little better, but from the news department's like priorities list, BBC is very low. If there were $30,000 that someone were offering, I think we would be interested in spending that in other ways.
And Doug is indicating that comment was right on the nose.
I withdraw.
Tom has his hand up.
Sorry, I just wanted to say the satellite on our roof is only used to bring in BBC. So if we can get rid of the satellite on the roof, which is a whole nother expenditure to do that, but it would make the re-roofing of our building substantially cheaper if they didn't have to work around that behemoth.
Sell the
How
satellite.
about that bonus?
Very
Grant and then Susan.
Just basically to call out that I think this, along with a few other kind of big things, will be the heart of the 2026 budget deliberations. So I think we don't really have to hash it out tonight. It sounds like it's already paid through next June. So
Yeah.
our next year's budget, when we approve it, should say whether or not we're funding BBC in our budget.
Thank you. Susan.
For people that haven't been with the board forever, there was a point where we carried the BBC News for a half hour and the BBC headlines both. We got rid of the BBC News, and the major reaction of the donors was, thank God. And we left the BBC.
And if you want BBC,
Because we went to a local news that was not just a half hour, it was an hour, and people really appreciated that. With the BBC headlines, I get a lot of flack about the fact that people think that they're too not progressive. And they'd actually like to hear local stuff. So just the input that I've had from donors is they'd welcome local headlines. Local weather is the major thing. They'd like to hear more weather, and I'm done.
Rob McClure every day.
Fishy business.
yes.
Getting rid of BBC will be easy. Dealing with Democracy Now! Now that will be tough.
Not a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really not.
I think we need
Any comments on any of the other staff reports from Sybil or Adrian or Aaron? One thing that I've been in communication with all three of them about, and also Doug, is how disappointing it was to not be on the poster at La Fête de Marquette, and the need for us to really make sure that our 50th summer we are a a bigger presence at the Fête de Marquette next summer, and to figure out how to work with Gary to make that happen.
Well, I'll be working with Gary a lot on the Willie Street Fair, so I will be sure to convey that sentiment.
Okay.
Gary and I have a great working relationship. We always have. So
Okay.
I'm happy to express my disappointment at that fact.
We do a lot of promo. I mean, how many times did that Fête de Marquette
Yeah.
promo here?
I know. I'm
And-
the one
and-
who scheduled it.
And also programmers going out of their way to present
Yes.
music that was relevant
Right.
to it, and to get there and not, I mean, I understand why we don't have a banner on the stage, but to not even be on the poster was noticeable and disappointing.
I agree, because
Okay.
it costs nothing.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I
Okay,
ask,
anybody-
was it not part of the contract?
I can't speak to that. I didn't prepare the contract.
I think we just have to ask.
According to Sybil, Gary said that he only wanted, Gary is the director of the Wilmar Center. That Gary said that only cash donors were going on the poster.
Okay,
No, I think the words are cash.
I'll chip in the doc.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was in on that email chain. I read it as well.
yeah. Okay, so we have an agreement that this is a priority to
Yeah.
happen.
Cool,
Okay,
Gary.
very good.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments on any of the
My
other
card
staff
to play.
reports? Seeing none, we have is there an engineering work group report? We see we've got a DEI report. Julia,
Yeah, or I could toss that to Phil as well.
okay.
Phil's taking a timeout.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to say. The big takeaway, I think, is that we don't have a staff representative on DEI at the moment. And just generally, it's been difficult to make headway. We've tried a lot of different techniques to contact the volunteers, both on air and just the general volunteer base, and nothing has really clicked. So I think the three of us are sort of at a loss on how to proceed.
Yeah, I'd agree. We're seeing a lot of challenges with even keeping staffing going, and any furtherance of any of our initiatives is really based on that. And that's what we've seen, that's what I've seen for the past year. It's just been an overall challenge, so we'd love to have a staff member on board. I think it should be a requirement that there is one, and per the charter, I think that might be in there, might not be stated quite that way. But we need to figure out a way to get a staff member, and yeah, we really have to get the word out and get folks to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. Everybody's happy that we didn't capitulate, is the word that everyone loves to use for it, and change our name. But I would love to see some hands-on involvement. We really do need that hands-on involvement. We need more members. So we're gonna get a few. There's gonna be some changes shortly here, so that's great. But yeah, if we could get a staff member, I'd love to see that.
Doug, do you have any idea? Is that gonna be a problem getting someone to?
All I can say is that I will give it to the staff
Yeah.
collective and we will discuss it
And I'm
on
sure you have
Tuesday.
already, yeah.
I won't be part of that discussion. I have next week off, but they'll have that discussion.
Thanks for
Thank you.
relaying the message.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments on,
Oh, Tom.
yes, Susan?
Oh, no, I'm not going to say anything. If Tom's willing to do it, I am not going to say a word. I wasn't willing to do it because I was with the committee for 8 years and I burned out. But if Tom-
Yeah, Tom.
Julia.
Tom is
Turn around.
willing,
Yeah.
Tom, yeah, I'm in there. Tom is willing to step up as a DEI member. Thank you, Tom.
And
Thank you
Tom,
so much.
and Tom hasn't even been drinking before he volunteered.
I owe you a bottle of scotch.
Okay, well, thank you for
That's
that, Tom.
wonderful. That's a game changer. Thank
Okay.
you.
See how
Yeah.
productive these meetings can be?
Right.
Problem stated, problem solved.
Pass the message.
Anything else?
Checking off.
Um,
You can, the more the
All over the
merrier.
Okay, well, then that may bring us to some considerable business, the reports of the Policies and Bylaws Committee, which relate both to the document called Policy on Committees and the committee profiles and the appointment matrix. I think the best way to start is by going to the document that's called Policy on Committees that slug the P and BL edit, which has also had some supplemental suggested edits. I've also kept in the board folder the red line copy, that what's identified as the P and BL, the Policies and Bylaws edit, shows the clean copy after the Policies Committee meeting of yesterday, but you can see the red line that's still in the board folder. I think the easiest way to do it is just go through the big changes in it, going in order down the document. The first is to identify the Community Advisory Board as a standing committee as opposed to what is currently called a mandated committee. There's no provision in the bylaws for what's called a mandated committee. And my initial thought was just to create a committee, to create a category called mandated committee. Grant suggested, no, let's just make it a standing committee. That to me makes more sense because it shows that even if the reason we have it is because it's a CPB.
And it's mandated.
And it's mandated. But making it a standing committee is a statement on our part that even if the CPB requirement goes away, we still think it is a good idea to have a CAB to have that community advisory function. So that is, and the language that is in this document is taken directly from the legislation creating the CPB and defining what you need in a community advisory board. So that is the first major change from the status quo for committees. The second, moving down, programming committee is something that Policies and Bylaws generally agreed with the notion of adding a second board member. But Julia pointed out that it was appropriate that the programming committee itself be given a chance to comment on this before Policies and Bylaws acted with further action. So we deferred action for the programming committee. The way we've defined it is a second board member, provided that if both board members are participating members, that they cannot be from the same program area. So for example, Carlos has an interest in being on the program committee. Julie has an interest in being on the programming committee. Carlos is from news. Julia is from music. So they would be able to coexist on the program committee under the language that the policies committee generally favored. But again, we've referred it to programming for its review and report back to us. And then, so we're not going to fill the programming committee appointments tonight because that committee is still in flux. The next thing is just clarifying or indicating that Policies and Bylaws has 3 to 5 directors and staff, including at least 2 directors. I think that that's pretty clear, and no substantive change. The next item, point E, is a major issue that we need to discuss, and that is the future of the task force on the futures. Policies and Bylaws yesterday, which was Adrian, Sybil, Phil, and myself, said, well, the future is always going to continue to exist, so we should
Can't solve the future.
can't solve the future with just a task force. Let's make it a committee. That's something that we should discuss because there are a number of ideas that were already put on the table that you've seen in the preliminary report of the task force to date that has, 4 budgetary items and 12 policy choices that we've already identified. And now the issue is just getting more specific. So on one hand, I'm not sure that we need an indefinite committee that goes on and on and on. And I'm kind of agnostic. I mean, the task force was created. I proposed that last year in response to a memo. That's something in one of Susan's report about, look, our listenership is getting old. It's not listening to the radio. It's, how do we deal with the new future? So I'm not really sure. I don't know the correct answer, whether or not it's a 3 to 6 month endeavor and then we're done, or it's something that needs to continue. And I think that's something that we need to discuss. And as it stands right now, it's a committee, which I've given a new name to, but the name is secondary to the question of whether or not it's a committee or a task force. And the floor is open for people who have thoughts on the matter, because I'm conflicted. I'm not sure what the correct answer is. There are several people around the table who have been participating. So, the floor is open. Do I see a hand up there? Phil, yeah.
I'll explain why I'm in favor of a committee, and that is mainly because I don't think a task force that will potentially be concluded in anything less than a year is going to be enough time to deal with the systemic issues that WORT is facing. Just as in completely leaving aside the whole idea of radio and the difference in listening trends between people who are younger and older. I think Susan mentioned something during the annual meeting about the fact that a majority of our pledge donors are people who have volunteered or are currently volunteering at WORT. And the fact that the wider listenership in Madison does not see this as something to support, that's very concerning to me. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed. And I'll leave it there and let someone else speak.
Thank you, Phil. Further comments?
I think the question, and I say this mostly as an inquiry to those serving on the committee, because I haven't, is whether, because we live in a rapidly changing world that will continue to be rapidly changing, we should always have a committee that is looking at those rapid changes vis-a-vis how WORT should adjust. It's probably a good idea. But I think, and probably why you're agnostic is, I think when you first proposed it, you were thinking of, hey, let's make some changes so we get through whatever the current phase of rapid change is. But if we're going to do it, then I think we need to understand the whole purpose of this committee, I would almost call it the coping with the future committee, is that. And because if we're doing it right, we're going to constantly evolve.
Okay, Nicole.
I am in favor of making it a committee, because the CAB makes suggestions all the time, but those can't be volunteers or anybody directly involved with the behind the scenes of WORT, and what futures could be if sent out there for other people to join is kind of like the CAB, but for volunteers. Like anyone who is at work can join this or give input, go to meetings and things like that, where yeah, I think having it as a regular committee is a good thing.
Okay. Anybody want to argue in the contrary and say keep it a
Yeah.
Well, no, how do you have, I know you've got a thing on here regarding, sort of visioning and, how do you see a potential do you see an overlap or a conflict between what this is going to be doing and what you want? What do you think we need to do?
And I think that's probably the heart of my lack of enthusiasm for it is, I mean, a lot of it, I was on the task force for government structure at the city for like 3 years, where we were laser focused on this question of committees and membership and how do you get stuff done and how do you get people involved and how do you not overlap. And I would say one of the key takeaways from that work was more committees doesn't get more work done. More committees doesn't, it's not a surefire way to accomplish something, but it's often the way that, hey, where there's this gap, there's something that we should be doing that we're not. The solution is create a committee. I think there is, I mean, and perhaps maybe with like tighter definition, it could reduce some of this, but I think, I mean, one of the things it said, like how emerging technologies would increase revenue streams. Like, to me, that's a direct conflict with finance committee, and like strategic vision for how we're going to raise revenues should be landing there. There's a social media work group. And so if you're talking about technologies to engage people through social media, that feels like a conflict. And I guess, yeah, the item that is towards the bottom of the agenda is, I think that the board very much should be holding the lion's share of the work around what is the future, what is the strategic direction for WORT. And I would hope that the board is the primary committee group that's focused on this question of, are there big things, emerging technology, or, you know, technology is just like one of the ways that you kind of deal with the future. You can also do that through processes, through people, there's a lot of other things other than technology. But I would hope that we as a board can start to develop some coherent strategy around where do we see things going? What are the big trends, and where do we want to steer the ship? And I'm not sure that a separate committee would do that better than the board.
Well, in defense of the committee, the preliminary report has pulled together data that did not exist prior to the committee, the task force, and has come up with 17 specific recommendations on stuff to do. So I would say the task force in its 1 year of operation is a significant accomplishment in terms of giving us specific do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. So I think we have accomplished something that otherwise was not getting done. And if we want to then take the stuff that you're talking about, the vision stuff that you've got at the bottom, and craft that onto this body, that could work perfectly. I mean, I see the need for what you're talking about, but I think, you know, nobody was looking at the question, how are we going to increase our social media presence? Now, Julia's doing, Julia, I see her Facebook posts about, you know, she, it's my year's, hi, I'm Julia McCanley. I do a show on WORT. It's my year's anniversary. And, you know, I did this reel, there was no organized, there's no way to organize, here's a strategy, here's a specific thing we can do, here's a function we can perform. And now we have the start of that. Julie and then Nate.
Yes, so I would agree with Grant as a member of this task force, and I would say it is time to take what we've learned from it, time to think of it as a discovery session, a discovery exercise, and then take what we learned from it and then disseminate that information into more specific areas. So for example, Nate had some great proposals on actual new positions, which is a whole other discussion, but getting specific in these areas that we've identified. So that would be my opinion. I don't think a committee is needed. I'll say that, yeah, this has been a discovery session, and it's felt like it has a little bit of a lack of focus in that way, because that was the intent, was to pull all that we could out of it and brainstorm. So now that we've identified these things, let's get some action going. So, yes.
Yeah, I've only been able to go to 2 of the meetings because that's just sort of how the timing has been. But one thing I have noticed from the committee meetings is that there's been a lot of staff engagement at them. I think the last meeting had all the staff members there, or very close to it. So I feel like even if we don't move forward with this as a committee, it might be worth considering, like, just from my own perspective, it's a very useful place to like bring proposals to and sort of brainstorm them. So maybe having a more robust way for the staff to propose changes to the board, if we choose to not go forward with this committee, might be something we should look at too.
Interesting. Yeah. Like, why is that space resonating so much? So, yeah.
Well, that might argue for continuing it as a task force.
That's true, yeah.
Which can meet periodically as needed. Staff could say, hey, we're bouncing around a bunch of ideas. We know we can't afford all of them. We'd like to pull the group together to bounce those ideas. To be clear, based on what I said before, I don't have a strong feeling. I'm glad to hear from you, Julia. And as a member of the committee, like, what direction to go. I just want to make sure we don't lose focus on continually adjusting for the future. I'm not as confident as you might be, Grant, that the board as a board will handle that stuff. I think the board responds well to proposals that are worked on in committee, but does it have to be this committee? Not necessarily, as long as we don't lose focus. It can come from the staff for all I care. We just need to continue to have that focus.
Tom,
Yeah, I just put my hand down because I was trying to collect my thoughts. Having the board do this is going to add substantially to board time commitments. And every member of the board would probably have to be on that task force group email. Do we kick everyone else off that's on that committee already who have had some good input? I think it should stay as an actual committee and report to the board and still have all the board be in that email, that group email, to be a part of the whole process and the decision-making process.
as to the membership, my thought was that you need a defined membership, whatever we call the body, you need a defined membership. And my suggestion was up to 5 volunteers, up to 5 directors, and up to 10 staff. The Policies and Bylaws Committee wanted no cap on the number of people who could serve, so they deleted that. So it's essentially, if you express an interest, you're on.
It's a huge committee.
Well, I mean, which would, but the committee felt that having a completely open process for people to participate was more appropriate. I thought a cap number was manageable. The committee deleted that, so that's what's before us. This is really interesting. This is we do not have consensus.
Would it wreck it by just calling it a committee instead of a task force?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what the discussion is.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what it feels like.
the-
Some people are feeling like if it's solidified with the word committee on it, that's kind of a bummer. But if it's a task force, maybe it's dynamic and cool.
Tom again, and then Doug.
I just wanted to say that if we look at this similar to the engineering committee, which is wide open and has a bunch of members in it, that get together when they can, and depending on their strengths, they get themselves involved in certain projects or whatever. And I raised this possibility a while back. A lot of our work on the engineering committee gets done via a Discord server where people at their time can go in and respond to ideas, kick their own ideas in there, and we get a lot of work done without even meeting. And so that might be another possibility to cut down on actual workload of getting everybody to get together at a certain time.
Yeah, one of the provisions in the text is that when it came time to voting, the committee could vote by email because it's impossible to even hope to get a full. I mean, if you got 20 people, you're never going to have 20 people at a meeting. Doug, did you have?
Yeah, it was just the clarification of committee versus task force or work group for that matter. Committees, according to our bylaws, have very specific requirements that they have to follow, including 7-day notice of meeting, and other reporting requirements, where work groups and task force can work and operate a little more loosely. They're still under the board's supervision, But they don't have some of those requirements that committees have to adhere to.
But under the CPB, if a subunit of the organization has any decision-making power, it still has to provide that notice.
Really?
Yeah,
Where'd you read that?
in the CPB legislation.
Oh, lovely.
Which may or may not be relevant in the
Michelle?
near
Yeah, you don't
future.
They wouldn't though.
They wouldn't have any.
Well, no.
No committee has any
No,
power short of the
well,
board.
it has decision-making power in terms of proposing things. I mean, it
Yeah,
takes
that's-
votes to say,
That's not the.
That's not
well,
decision-making
then,
power.
well, then no committee has decision-making
Yeah.
power.
That's
You
true.
can have them though. You could say finance has the authority to do X, Y, or Z, and then they would have that, but normally a committee gives recommendations to the board and the board makes the decisions. But like at the Board of Public Works or Plan Commission, those have they have their own
Yeah.
authority separate from, they're not just giving recommendations, but none of our committees are like that.
I'm just gonna say this doesn't feel ready on this committee. I'm not talking about the whole document for prime time for a decision. It's percolating. I think we've had a great discussion. It's probably worth at the next, if there is one, meeting of this task force / committee, to ponder further, like, what is it, like, can it see itself 5 years from now? And if it can, in what form? And if the answer to that is pretty compelling, then I would call that a committee, as opposed to a task force, which I think, to me, the difference is task forces come and go. And the idea is there's a job to do. It's a finite job and it will get finished. Doesn't mean various pieces might not flitter elsewhere, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, is to bring feedback back to that space, to those members, and get their thoughts on it. I don't know what we would call that group at this time,
Well,
but
yeah, I mean,
could
because
still be a task force.
okay, do we have a consensus on referring so then the programming committee language is being referred to the programming committee and the futures group is being referred to the futures group? Do we have is that a consensus to not put we would have had it would be great. We would have had an actual contested vote. That would have been exciting. Okay, but is there, Nate?
Just like a point of clarification, who would be the point person for this? Would that be you, since you're kind of already?
Yeah.
Okay, great. To generate the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll call a meeting of whatever this body is and we'll discuss it there and see if we can agree on something. Okay.
Whatever this body is, group.
The futurists. Okay, then thank you for that. Then moving on, just some further subsequent modifications suggested by Grant and myself regarding just clarifying the committee meetings and reports. We're not subject to the open meetings law. We're subject to the Communications Act of 1934. And the language in there in terms of open and closed meetings. So if are people okay? I think those give people a chance to look at it. Does anybody have any questions about those? So every suggestion on this document is something that came up after policies and bylaws finished with it. So I mean, I think they're pretty straightforward, just cleaning up the language. One change is that Personnel Committee had a presumption of being closed. As Grant pointed out, and I confirmed, that's not authorized on the Communications Act. It can be closed on a case-by-case basis, but can't be presumed to be closed. So are people okay with these changes subsequent to what policies looked at? Okay, well, then I will accept all these changes. Trying to accept all these changes. So if that's the case, if we then agree to refer the language regarding the programming committee and the futures group to their respective bodies, can we have a motion to adopt this document as amended?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Yeah.
What happens to the regulatory
The regular, Doug, the regulatory compliance committee has been deleted because
It hasn't existed since before I worked here.
Okay.
it's been,
Pretend.
I don't know, it was. Yeah, it's unnecessary.
I think it was created at a time where staff levels were lower and staff didn't assume the responsibilities of all regulatory compliance. So FCC compliance is now handled by a combination of the news department, facilities and operations, as well as volunteer
Yeah.
coordination. CPB is handled by me, as well as the Department of Financial Institutions, which there's also some compliance there
And
as well.
then the oversight is the personnel committee and ultimately the board as part of its evaluation. Did you do the right job in compliance?
Yeah.
So that's why it's been eliminated. But thank you for asking that.
Can I just add a point,
Yeah.
ask a point of clarification on the motion?
Yes,
It seems to me that what we're approving is what we see before us minus 2C and E.
correct.
Okay, so that's the motion on
Yeah.
the table.
Grant.
Okay.
So I put a comment here. One thing we could consider now or in the future would be to have our sort of master list of either our, 2025 committees and, work groups with membership, et cetera. Basically the document that I think we're going to look at next,
Yeah.
the profile
Yeah.
matrix. And then instead of having sort of two copies of a lot of that stuff, and then we update the one,
Yeah.
and then not the other, to consider having that be an addendum of this policy. So then we can just every year make sure that that sort of committee profile matrix document is accurate and reflects it. And then that would be, sort of an addendum to this policy rather than having to kind of edit things in multiple places.
Yeah, I think that the document we're about to look at was, I think maybe Shali created that as something to go in the orientation package. And that was its genesis.
I mean, I
But
guess.
no, I agree with you. I understand
The
what you're
other,
saying.
the
No,
work groups,
Doug
et
did it.
cetera.
Doug did it. Okay, sorry.
The work groups and other things don't, they have like a charter or a
Yeah.
purpose statement in that document. There's nothing about any of those in here, which we don't need that, but I think it's the only place you would find it then is in this other document. And if it's not incorporated into the policy or referenced in the policy, it kind of flows out there. This also doesn't list the permanent committees, which are in the bylaws, but again, it's like you have to know, okay, now here's just the standing committees, but now I have to go somewhere else for the permanent and somewhere else for the work groups. So I feel like if we're going to take the
Okay.
time to have a accurate list, we could reference it here.
One thing this does provide is that the secretary shall maintain a file of the work group resolutions, the resolutions creating the various work groups. So there will be a place to find that material, but I understand your point. But in answer to Jeff's clarification, yes, the motion is to approve the Board of Directors policy on committees as edited by the Policies and Bylaws Committee yesterday, minus 2C and 2E, which are being referred to their 2C and 2E, is that
To be, C and E, yeah.
2C and E,
Yeah.
which are being referred to their respective bodies.
Tuesday is still, should be in here. It's just a question of whether there's another board seat, right?
Right, but we're not
Itself-
approving the text that's in here.
Well, no, the text that's in here
As
is,
specified in its charter right now.
the text that's in here is the current language.
Yeah, so I think that can be.
We can adopt C, but the question is whether or not we're going to
Amend
change
it later. Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. So
C
we're
is
just,
included, but
yeah,
not E.
we're referring the futures group to the future.
Got it.
So everybody clear on that and comfortable that we've had sufficient debate?
Most importantly, Nicole, do you
Yeah.
have that?
Oh, great. Motion to adopt policy on committees as edited by the Policies and Bylaws Committee on 7/16/25,
Yeah.
excluding 2E. That group will discuss its classification at a later date.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. Then, as Grant anticipated, the related item is the committee profiles and matrix, which we'll call up. And again, the document slugged P&BL edit is the clean copy as reviewed by Policies and Bylaws yesterday. Some of the reflects the document that we just adopted. I don't think there's anything beyond, there's some additions that with regarding time. Oh, one of the things in the policy that we just adopted is it is a good idea for the standing committees to have standard meeting days and times. It's a whole lot, and it can be tough to make that schedule the first time, but in terms of ongoing meetings, it's a lot easier if people get them on their calendars, and because there's a notice requirement of the committees, so committees are urged to see if they can do that. And I see Phil has added when the DEI meets and so on. You'll see here the various language about the programming committee. Ignore that because that's going to programming for its review. I think that's the major thing. We don't need to talk further about the task, the futures group, and that brings us down to the important business of the actual appointments. I did my best to consult with everybody and prepare these two charts at the bottom of the document, which show the holdover and what were then the temporary officer appointments and the requests by both new and holdover directors. The one potential conflict we had was there were 3 holdover members of personnel and 3 directors indicated an interest in serving on personnel. And so I will step off personnel so that Terry and Phil and Grant can all serve on personnel, and I will find something else to occupy myself.
Trivia night.
Trivia night.
God.
So what you see at the bottom of the document where it says vacancies is my understanding of what the new directors and holdover directors indicated their interests were. What I think is before us is the document is the table that says appointments, that has everyone's name and the appointments and the committees that they're either on or want to be on. So if you'd all take a moment to make sure that whether it's in black ink or green ink or whatever your particular browser is showing, the committees that are by your name are what you want to be on for this coming term.
Can we change it?
Now's the time. Yes,
Right.
it's something that,
I would like to be off the futures.
okay, okay.
Looks like I don't get one.
I think 3 committees is enough.
Did you,
I
okay,
just remember.
okay,
yes.
fine. Any other changes anybody want
That I have to be on, so.
implement from what they're indicated? And,
Oh, it's way at the bottom of the sheet.
My battery died in my own.
Would you like?
well,
to
you're on
You are
exec
on
and personnel. Anything else?
Your there goes right now. Personnel, DEI, and events.
Do you want me to get you a laptop?
Okay.
Just one note.
I'm fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
So,
What's
I
the
mean, do you want me,
events?
should I
You
read
mean
these?
there's a board member that wants to be on the events work group? Not since the late Kathy Hovland have we had any board members
Yeah.
express an interest in
Behold,
events.
God.
Do you not want me there?
Behold, Terry.
Please, Terry.
Okay.
I'll be in touch.
So we've got me on exec policies and future. We've got Tanya on exec and personnel, Grant on exec finance, personnel and policies, Nicole on exec cab and elections, Terry on personnel, DEI and events, Carlos on, we can't be on programming yet because we haven't made that second
Right.
appointment, but finance and futures. Shannon on finance and DEI, Julia on programming, DEI and future, Phil on policies, DEI, future and personnel, and Jeff, we need you to pick a second committee.
Oh, I told you more than once, I can do the future committee.
Okay, is that what you want?
Sure.
Okay. Any other requests? Obviously, we may be dealing in the future with a change to programming, but this would be our committee list for the coming year. Are people comfortable with their appointments and looking forward to the work?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Hey, just a question, Tom, are you still on?
yeah.
Yep.
I assume this is you. Will you be making the changes to the committee email list?
Yeah.
And,
What?
and like, how quickly, I'm just curious, so I don't send out a personnel committee that goes to the wrong people.
Well, you can
kind of
just,
thing.
you just put the names in yourself.
Good
It just by,
point.
you just delete, just.
Some people are just smart. Sorry, Stu.
Or just send me the roster. I can have it done tomorrow morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, so do we have a consensus that everybody's happy with these appointments?
Yes,
Then,
thank you.
One clarifying question.
yeah,
I think technically we're supposed to, kind of approve all the entire membership, not just the board appointments. Are the names that are in the other areas, are those more or less up to date, or do we care about? I think that in theory, at this meeting, we're supposed to confirm the entire membership for all of.
whoa.
Sorry.
Control Z, Control Z.
I just found it.
Everything.
I'm a great secretary, guys.
Is it back?
It's
Yeah,
back.
it's back.
Sorry. There's version histories.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's easy ways around it.
I
so.
did make updates to it before it went out for the board orientation, so all staff member names in the various committees should be correct.
Well,
Yeah, but
we could maybe after this have the chairs verify their membership, and then if there are adjustments needed, we could do that at the next meeting or something.
Okay, let's presume that the names in the above the names elsewhere in this document are accurate and current, and the motion would be to approve these board appointments, and the chairs will notify us of any changes that need to be. That's another thing that we did by adopting that amended policy on committees, is add the provision that we can make subsequent modifications, not just at this meeting. So we have the ability to make, I'm sorry?
Sounds good.
Okay, yeah, Tom.
I was gonna say along with approval of committee membership, let me know if there's any changes to meeting times and dates. So I can get that, either myself or Doug can get that adjusted on the website calendar.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and the whole calendar is just something that's going to be talked about and worked on, but
Yep.
yeah. Okay, so we need a motion to approve these board appointments as agreed to by the body. Is somebody make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Phil's up. I
I
second.
Okay. So I'm glad we could get this all worked out. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, let's go back to my agenda is, we have a programming committee report.
Yeah, there's. a
Oh,
report.
actually, I'm sorry. Do you want to?
Just real quick on personnel, we're gonna begin staff evaluations later this month. We still hope to, I should say, plan on completing them by the end of August. We will conclude our 4th news director interview tomorrow afternoon, and the hiring committee will meet next week to determine next steps. And the development director hiring committee, I believe, is meeting.
We have met today.
Oh, you met today. Sorry,
Yes.
I will change that with its first meeting. And our next meeting, which is part of why I was asking about the email, since we now have a majority of our members who were not on the committee, is June 22nd at 9 a.m. I will get an email about that. It'll be virtual. We can change it. We do not, because my predecessor chair also did not have a we haven't had regular standing. We do meet regularly, but not at a regular date and time. We can certainly put it on the agenda for our next meeting to see if we can
We kind
establish
of
that.
were.
Kind of,
We-
sort of.
And then we added a whole lot of other meetings.
Yeah. Anyway,
What
well,
time?
9 a.m., July 22nd.
Got it.
I'll go kayaking.
Ah,
Okay, any questions for Jeffrey? Like, Julia?
Yeah, there's a couple notes in there for programming committee. I just have them in as board liaison notes. Don't have a lot to add to them. Right now, we have dedicated a lot of efforts to revising the show proposal process flow. So we have some good documents that are going for that, and we will share those when they're ready. There was talk of a different kind of access hour. So we are chatting on that as well. So we'll bring thoughts. I think that lots of folks here are familiar with that. So we'll bring that here when we have our thoughts on it. And yeah, I think that, and then yes, I did add a piece on, we will discuss the changes to the charter. We haven't been able to discuss it quite yet. And then we'll bring back our thoughts when we have.
Okay. Any questions for Julie on programming? Thank you. I think that's, there's no elections committee report, right?
No.
Is there a CAB report?
No, they're on hiatus.
Okay. Okay, then that brings us down to the task force on the, what's still at the moment a task force on the future. The preliminary report was adopted by the task force on June 28th. So we met that deadline, or at least a preliminary report. And there are a series of recommended actions which fall into two categories: things that have direct budgetary implications and things which do not. So the way I think the motion should read is to accept the recommendation, and there's a separate document in the folder called the motion regarding the report, to accept the recommendations regarding 1 to 4 because they have budgetary implications, and we shouldn't be adopting recommendations that have budgetary implications before it goes to the finance committee, but adopt recommendations 5 through 17, which reflect policy or aspirational or functional recommendations that the task force made after in its year of investigation. So two things. Well, first, I hope you get a chance to read the document itself, because there's a lot of useful information in the document about the baseline data of what is our current listenership, what is our current community outreach, what is our current volunteer participation, what are our current revenue streams. There is a lot of very useful information, because the only way we'll know if we're getting anything done is by knowing where we're starting from. So there's some really good, valuable information that staff prepared that are in that report. But then we also made some specific recommendations, 17 specific recommendations, which, as I say, go from having budgetary implications to functional, programmatic, aspirational, and intentional. And I'd be happy to, we have some members of the task force here, and a couple of staff here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or discuss any aspects of it. I think this is an important first step on getting some stuff done, because our sense was that everything in terms of outreach and revenue streams and community impact and volunteer participation flows from increased listenership. And these are some strategies and technologies that in our year of discussion, we concluded would aid our listenership. Various social media strategies, various technological strategies, and that's what we've presented in this preliminary report. So that's what's before us. So what I would hope we could have is a motion to accept the recommendations 1 through 4, because they can't be adopted now because they have budgetary implications, but to adopt the remaining recommendations because they're functional and aspirational and intentional. So thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And I think this is something that people should want to discuss, because, you know, this is, I think this is important. And I think this is the first step towards getting some stuff done. Staff was, I want to make it really clear that everything in these recommendations that pertains to staff responsibility, staff bought into. The provision about increased live remotes Aaron agreed to, everything that has to do with the news director bringing talk remotes to underserved communities, Nate bought into. So staff was a part of this these discussions all the way down the line. So I hope, that should provide some comfort to you as you consider it. Yeah, Grant?
Question on number 4. So that would be in the kind of first group.
Yeah.
Of budget implications. So the first 3 seem like kind of new initiatives that would require funding. For continue to support the WORT app. Can you speak to what the funding implications?
Yeah,
is for that?
Tom, it's a couple $1,000s. Tom, the funding for the WORT app?
Just a little over 3,000 a year. And any changes we want to make are free, so.
And the point 2, the budget for the technology and subscriptions to display program data on car radio is about $2,000.
Actually,
We change?
Actually, we found through David Klon, one of my phenomenal engineering committee members, about $500 we can get a unit to do that.
Oh,
That's
cool.
not getting it up and functional, but it's actually purchasing the equipment to be able to do it.
But the number the task force had when it made this recommendation was about $2,000.
Correct.
The discussion was, we think this is a good idea. It is up to the board to decide in the greater context of the budget if it's worth the $2,000, but we thought it was worth $2,000 to get that information on your car stereo, on your car radio.
And obviously the staff collective is well aware and supportive of at least all the rest of the stuff, and will be preparing the first draft of the budget. So any or all of these could be incorporated into their proposed budget for next year.
Right.
Got
it. Anything else any other questions or comments that people want? I thought that this has been a good process. I thought we've identified a lot of things. There's some things that need more operational details, like, SD is very big on wanting video live streams of talk shows. Well, that's how exactly do you do that? Transcripts for the news shows. We've got them for Madison Book Beat. We don't quite have them yet for a public affair, but and Nate's got some more ideas that are still bubbling under. So I think we're doing some work. Phil.
Yeah, specifically speaking to Estee's recurring drive for video streaming. I guess I don't want to say that she has been resistant to following out the staff procedure that staff developed, but it's clear that it's something she has expressed a desire for assistance with. And so maybe that is something that the committee should encourage her to actually move forward with by seeking assistance for that specific proposal.
We met with Carlos, Sarah, and I was just kind of met with Esty to continue pursue this. So we're talking with her directly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're talking about that could probably make this move forward.
Great.
The language in the recommendation is to continue to investigate the feasibility and technology of doing this, which was our attempt.
Carefully chosen words.
Chosen words, yes. As opposed to the book beat, encourage, train, and assist the host to use AI to prepare transcripts. So I mean, we try to,
You lawyered it.
Well, and being reasonable about expectations.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments on any of this? I think this is a good first step to, start dealing with what we got to deal with. And again, I appreciate the work that staff did in pulling together the data, because it's important baseline data to see what doing this gets done, what this accomplishes. So if there's no further discussion, there's motion.
Is it possible for the amounts that you've researched and talked about, is it possible to get that included in this document, especially for budgeting purposes? So we've got it all. together.
I mean, my concern about that, I understand what you're saying, but Tom's already potentially a cheaper one for
Sure.
something. And I mean, I assume it's gonna get worked through in the budget. And I'm also gonna assume since we're accepting these first four things,
Right.
that if the budget comes back without them, we're gonna get an explanation. Well, it turned out it was $10,000 and we don't have that or whatever.
Sure.
I mean,
So
that's,
ballparking is okay.
And,
Yeah.
and one of the things that was in my draft of the recasted futures group was a specific directive to the group to prepare to inform staff of actual dollar figures for precise proposals in time to be melded, to be included in the budget deliberations.
Right.
So that's currently on hold, but that's something that, yeah, that information has to be, it's in the minute. I mean, those numbers are in the minutes. They may even be in the further report. They're not in this summary, but they're in the documentation.
Tom.
Yeah. I can't, who is it?
Tom.
Tom, yes.
I just wanted to say also, with costs for this, Susan has asked everyone on staff to come up with a list of technology they can use, including new RE20 microphones, a video camera for Aaron to be able to do SD's project and or live video for live music, that sort of thing. So a lot of the budgetary items that might be in next year might not have to be if she can get donors to actually purchase these things before we get to that point. So a lot of that stuff will change. Hopefully it will change.
That last point about the Aaron and the cameras, that's point 3 there. And that was a product of the committee of the task force deliberations, where it began with, let's do this. Oh, but COPA is already doing this, and let's glom onto them. So, but yeah, there may be budgetary implications. That's why it's in the top 4. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if we're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That brings us down to, we've already handled the matter of creating the CAB as a standing committee by adopting the policy on committees. The Grant, the remaining items are yours. What do you want to say about those, and are they action items for us now?
Yeah, the calendar one would be, and then the last thing would be, I can just give a brief.
Okay, but what is the calendar item what is the action item?
So in that, the third bullet says WORT subunit matrix. You can ignore the tab that says committee matrix. That was just me trying to make sense of things before we had the other document, but there's a tab that's called calendars. So basically what I would propose is that we have one calendar that has all of our subunit meetings on it, and that calendar is accurate, and that if meetings ever need to change, that the chairs of the committees are responsible for updating that calendar, and that's a calendar that we all could subscribe to, and that would satisfy the need to publish that online. We don't have to go into this matrix here, but these are all the calendars that I found, and kind of there's a real spattering of where our committee meetings are found today. Most, like the highest volume of them are on the quote WORT calendar that says WORT community calendar. Once you click on it, that had the annual meeting on there, DEI, engineering, and finance, and board of director. But then there's this WORT internal calendar that I got invited to as a new board member that has engineering and programming on it, and then a bunch of other stuff that's not, committee related, that's not anything I need to know. And then there's a lot of committees that aren't anywhere. So I also got invited to a Google Calendar called Board of Directors, which seems to be blank. I put the finance committee, the future finance committee meetings on that calendar. And so one proposal would be we could actually just use that calendar, or a new one could be created. But my proposal would be that we agree that we have a place where we could have all of those. And then there's the second question of whether, there's an option to just display that calendar on the website to satisfy the need to have those posted, or staff could continue to copy information from that calendar and put it into this other calendar. Of course, the issue there is there's more likely going to be errors and things get out of sync, and it's extra work for staff to have to recreate that. But at a minimum, I guess I would really like to be able to have a place where I could go and look and see where when the committee meetings are happening. They're all supposed to be publicly noticed and available, and I, as a board member, have no idea when stuff is meeting.
Thank you. Doug, and then I'm going to call on Tom, but Doug first.
Yeah, the different calendars serve different purposes. The one on our website is outward facing, and that's public notice of meetings. And it's how we achieve that public notice of meetings. So events that are uploaded to the WORT calendar on our website is where all committees should be put. The reason there's a second calendar is because that's our internal calendar where we put the Zoom or the Google Meet links and the other specific information about joining that meeting if you're not going to be live. Those links to those meetings, we do not want to publish externally because of safety concerns and spammers and bots. So that's why in the notice of meetings, it says for information to join the meeting, contact Stu. And that's for security purposes and it's necessary. So we really do need to have two different sets of calendars, one internal, one external, both for different reasons. It's just a matter of making sure that all committees are on the WORT website calendar because that's our reporting requirement. So I think that's also why there's an impetus to get a standard meeting time, a standard day of the month and time, because for staff to do a recurring event on the WORT website calendar is an easy thing because once you set it up, it's just in there. And if you have an anomalous month where you have to move the meeting, then for that individual month, you can make an exception and it's not a big deal. So I hope that helps explain it.
But you have a lot more, you have plenty of other calendars, yeah, that you saw?
Yeah, there's a lot. It's very confusing to even know that the WORT calendar is a place that you would go for meetings. I think the other issue is it doesn't make sense that the president should be contacted for, like, every chair should be the one that has to provide a link to their, online meeting. And so that information needs to be available on the meeting. I mean, right now it's very inaccessible for anybody that wants to join. And I think there's a lot of things we could do to improve that. I would say for right now, I would like to focus on getting an internal calendar that is actually accurate, that at least we all have access to, because that would be a great step one. And then we could have further discussion around how much detail to share publicly and how to keep those things in sync.
Yeah, I was just going to agree, and this is kind of a side note, but Doug, I was going to ask you, so what you just stated regarding the difference between these calendars, is there documentation of that on our drive? And if not, can we have that and add it to onboarding documents for folks? Because I would have loved to have something like that last year. And I'm glad that you mentioned it.
I don't know where any of this stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, granted,
Yeah.
our onboarding tools are somewhat new.
Right, of course.
And they
yeah.
were just, I mean, many of them were created as a result of last year's lack of onboarding of new members, as you know. So, and these materials are things that need to be tweaked along the way. So it's great to know where there's gaps. But again, like putting the meeting link on our website would be irresponsible, is all I'm saying. And if you prefer to be the contact to get the link for finance committee meetings, we can just alter the post so that requests for the link go to treasurer@wordfm.org instead of president. I mean,
Well, it's not
that's
just
up to
me.
you.
I mean, if we have the DEI committee on there and then somebody sees it the day of and say, oh, I want to go here, I want to connect virtually. Now, if Stu's not checking his email that day, then he's responsible to go and chase down DEI committee and ask where their link is. And I mean,
Like business continuity.
and there's ways that you can accomplish this. You can use the Zoom sign up link. And so you have that screening ability. They have to put their email in there to get the link. So you don't have to post the link, but there's a lot of ways to automate this to make it accessible.
Great.
Can I make a suggestion on this? This doesn't feel like something that, I mean, it's good board discussion, but that like we need to vote on, for example. But I think directing staff seems to me like it is necessary to have two calendars, an outward facing one and a board one. But to have that, I've been on board for 2 years. I don't know I know where to find the outward facing one. But I don't know where to find the inward facing one. And, maybe even if it's just send us all the links to those calendars. Grant, I appreciate that you found these links and put them in so I think it feels to me more like a directive, if that's maybe too strong, or suggestion, urging, whatever, to staff to kind of take on for us.
So I would say, I mean, as a board, we just clarified in our policy the 7-day requirement that's already been in our bylaws that's not been followed. I think we as the board, we're responsible for our subunits, for all the committees. I think it'd be really good to give notice to all the chairs, because not all of them are in this room. Say, hey, we've updated our policy. And one of the things we want to stress is, please set a regular occurring time, and we want you to publish your meeting dates, and here's a link to the calendar to do that. We've given all the chairs access. So I think it feels like an actionable thing that we actually should say, we're not just gonna have a policy that says this should happen, but we're gonna create a path that it does happen.
You want to state that can you restate that as a motion?
I would move that we create an internal calendar that will be the home for all of the subunit meetings, and that the chairs of all subunits will be directed to update that calendar with their scheduled subunit meetings.
Do we want to phrase that as create a calendar? Is there a way we can merge or refine an existing one, or?
Like I said, the WORT Board of Directors one, and you could rename it, or, you can create a Google Calendar very easily. So I think we can work out the details, but,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, don't you want? Should the committee chairs be dealing with the calendar or notifying staff to deal with the calendar?
I think staff can continue to so if the chairs, they're the ones that are responsible for setting the meeting times of their meetings. If they have responsibility to make sure that this internal calendar is accurate, then staff can manage the translation of that internal calendar and continue doing what they're doing right now to keep the external one up to date. So, you could have chairs send an email to staff to add a calendar event on this calendar. Again, it's just, it bugs out, and then the chair, oh, we just had to change our meeting. It was going to be here. Now we're moving it up an hour. There's really no reason why they can't and shouldn't update the meeting that they're responsible for. So I think it would avoid inaccuracies in the calendar if we put the responsibility at the chair level, and then let staff continue to manage the publicly facing one, but they would at least have then all of the accurate details in this internal calendar, so that job would be easier for them.
Doug, is this you or Tom responsibility?
For the most part, it's me.
Okay, you got any comments on Grant's motion?
No, the outward facing already exists. It's just a matter of adding the other committees as we figure out when their meeting times
Okay.
are. And having one go-to place would be incredibly helpful for that.
Okay, so you're okay with Grant's motion?
Absolutely.
Okay. Nicole, do you have it?
Motion to create an internal calendar that will be the home for all of the subunit meetings, and the chairs of all the subunits will be directed to update the internal calendar with standing meeting times and links to virtual meetings.
Hi, George, I think she's got it.
I must say that my understanding is about 50% of the committees that exist do not have chairs. So I'm wondering what next steps would be.
The next step is for me to designate a temporary chair.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
How do I get a list of the committees that don't have chairs?
Well, I think in one of these documents that was stated.
Yeah.
Let me see
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause right there, it's got them all.
Okay,
Right.
so that is
Committee
an
profiles and
accurate
matrix.
statement of the committee matrix.
Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so now are any of the committees that you're on absent chairs?
None of my committees have chairs.
Okay, who do you have a suggestion for who should chair programming?
I would like to chat with programming on that, but I think I would probably take that.
Okay, well, I'll designate you as a temporary chair, subject to the committee's action.
Sounds good.
What else? I'm just handing out chairman.
There's,
All
well, for
have a
me,
place to
there's
sit.
DEI does not have a chair, and then, and the task force for the future, but there's a
Okay,
lot to be
I'm
determined there.
probably gonna take that too. But,
But that- yeah,
but, okay, so we got you and Phil on DEI and Shannon,
And now me.
what, and Terry, I mean, why don't the four of you consult with each other and let me know? I mean, if the four of you consult with each other, you can figure out who it's gonna be among yourselves. Yeah. Any other committee that people are on that need chairs, temporary chairs designated?
do we see?
Is
Policies
there
and
chair of
bylaws have one?
elections?
Me.
You're chair of elections?
Are you?
Secretary?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. As secretary, you're the chair
Okay,
of
so we'll
elections.
fill that in.
The cab does not have a chair on this doc.
The cab does have a chair. It's on the website. If you go on the cab page, you'll see
Okay.
who it is. I think it's co-chairs right now, and I think it's Michael Simons and John Egan, maybe.
um,
Is that right?
Adrian runs the meetings. I take notes.
Nice.
Stu has been running policy and bylaws.
okay, I mean, we've Adrian's been active too, but okay, so I'll take that. Jeff is still gonna stay as chair of personnel. Grants at finance, anything else that,
Social media groups also missing.
that's
one.
really not really function, I mean, is the social media group functioning?
Seems like it's a group, not a committee.
I'm a volunteer to do it.
Well,
No,
Oh.
there is a volunteer
Oh.
who is in charge of social
Okay.
media in general.
There's also 5 hours of staff time per week devoted to social media as well.
okay.
In the
Okay,
news
so
department.
I think, okay, so we got a programming chair, that was the big. We're taking care of that. Okay, so we've made progress on committees.
We do have that motion.
Oh yeah, we haven't voted on the motion. Yeah, Grant's motion seconded by somebody or other. Okay,
Yep.
any further, thank you for raising that, Grant. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Grant, you want to discuss this or hold
The
that off
last
till next
one?
week?
Yeah, let me just give a 30-second. So basically, I just wanted to start a conversation. I saw the recommendation from the January retreat that had a number of different recommendations. One of them that stood out to me was around long-range goals, kind of strategic planning. It's something I have a lot of background in, and it's something that I think that the board should have as one of its priorities. It does take time, but I think it's of the most important things that we should be doing. So I can work to maybe bring together a little bit more information of kind of different directions we could go with that and what it might look like, and maybe we could talk more at our next meeting about that.
Sure, I mean, it's a good idea. Okay, anything, there's nothing we need to go into the closed session for. Anybody have anything else they wanna bring up this time? Yeah, Doug?
Yeah, could you remove it from the agenda then?
Yeah.
The motion to
Yeah.
go into closed session.
Yeah.
Yeah, for personnel reasons, if there aren't any, there's no
Yeah,
reason to have it on the agenda.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Got it off the minute.
Anything else? Okay, well, we got a lot done. I appreciate it. It's a good meeting. Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm not even gonna ask for the name.
So Doug, just out of curiosity, I
Thank
think
you.
it's always on there and,
It's been on there. Yeah.
and does it, and I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be, but when staff see that, do they immediately
Do you
worry?
think there's an issue? Yeah, do they?
They may.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it
Well, I'm
shouldn't be
glad you brought
added
it
to
up
the
there.
agenda unless something's brought up
Right.
for
I mean,
closed session.
I always assumed it was a placeholder.
Yeah,
used If necessary, but.
I always kind
but
of
it's a
raise an
fair-
eyebrow
but
every
it's a-
month.
It's a fair.
It's already in
fair
the
comment.
Just-
I'm like, oh God, what now?
Right. No, I get it. I get it.
Hey, we didn't have to repeat ourselves 6 times with motions.
Sorry, I'm putting you there.
Yes, please.
Oh, it's a good meeting.
Thank you.
Laughed a couple times. Thanks for that, Nicole. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's so